Hi, this quick session will serve as a launching pad for those of you assigned to the negligent hiring issue in Florida. I will not be able to cover everything that you'll need to research, but rest assured, I have provided you with a handout that goes into details and contains a lot of hyperlinks to the materials that will help you gain an understanding of this issue. In terms of a starting point, and this should not really be a surprise, when you are running a search in Florida, what you will want to do is start with secondary sources. And in particular, once I run this search on an employer's liability to third parties for negligent hiring due to employees' intentional torts, you get quite a bit of secondary sources. What you should do to focus on practical secondary sources in Florida is limit that selection by jurisdiction to Florida. When you do that, there are two really good secondary sources in Florida that attorneys use all the time. There's something called, actually three. There's something called Florida Practice Series, Florida Jurisprudence, and a third one that covers Florida pleading and practice forms. Now, once you limit to Florida secondary sources, I'm going to just show you one in particular. This is a chapter from the Florida jurisprudence on negligent hiring. And keep in mind, you are going to have to research negligent hiring, not negligent retention. This particular resource is going to give me background on this issue. It's going to let me hyperlink to other secondary sources that are going to be highly relevant for you. And by reading this article, we're going to be able to hyperlink to cases and the relevant statute that is on point. Another thing to keep in mind when researching on Westlaw, you will want to save these items to folders. Folders are going to serve as a safety net for you. So if I save that first article to a folder, you will want to create a new folder and maybe title it Trial Brief Negligent Hiring. I'm going to show you the benefit of folders towards the end of the session, but start with your secondary sources to gain that understanding that you need. Moving on, once I've done that, I might have hyperlinked to the statute. I might have hyperlinked to cases that are relevant. I'm going to go there in a minute, but another group of, I call them secondary sources, that you'll have access to are going to be briefs and trial court documents. Now, if you run a global search like I did, these are somewhat hidden in the beginning, but if you click Show More, here you'll have access to those briefs and those trial court documents that I mentioned a few minutes ago. You are all going to be writing a memo in support or opposition to summary judgment. These are actual documents on those very issues. So, if you want to take a look at them and look at some of the arguments that practicing attorneys made, this is going to be a way for you to sort of understand how you want to structure your particular arguments. Utilize these. As practicing attorneys, we borrow from one another all the time. Right, moving on. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on the statute because there is in Florida a statute on this particular issue. 768.096. Again, that is in the handout as well. Keep in mind a couple of tips here. When you're researching statutes, you do generally want to start with your notes of decisions because those are going to be curated cases that editors thought provide a substantial analysis of this particular issue. There aren't a lot out there that have analyzed this statute. There are only 4, so it's not a really bad place for you to start. You'll see that Steyer's might be one that you'd want to take a look at. However, there are other resources available to you that you will want to look at, particularly under citing references. There are 5 cases there, so take a look at those cases. Again, not a lot of overwhelming information, but a good collection, if you will, of cases to start with that have analyzed this statute. Another group, since I showed you trial court documents from that global search I ran a few minutes ago, another group of highly relevant documents are going to be those trial court documents. Now, when I click that, there are 83 trial court documents that have mentioned 768.096, this Florida statute. You will only be interested in those that are motions or memos. So I can filter down to 37 by simply clicking that particular link. But another filter that you can apply to gain even more relevant information, you could do a search within the results. You're only interested in memos that discuss, school district or school. Once I do that, I knock it down to 8. And in particular, when I did this earlier, I noticed that there was one out there. I think the name of the case was Roe, that actually looked promising. Yeah, Jane Roe. Plaintiff's response to defendant's motion to dismiss and supporting memo of law. So you're going to want to sort of use these, as I said earlier, to reinforce your understanding of this particular issue and sort of know where you want to go with respect to the argument, no matter what type of, which side I should say, you're going to be responsible for this particular issue. All right, now once you look at the statute, I mean, theoretically, we've read secondary sources. I clicked on briefs and trial court documents from this keyword search. I looked at the statute. Now what should I do? Well, take a look at your cases. Now keep in mind, if you've read those secondary sources, you probably have already hyperlinked and read some of these cases already, and that's okay. I mean, if these cases are familiar to you already, it means you're doing a complete job with respect to research. Now, with respect to cases, I just wanted to give you one quick tip. And again, the handout goes into a little bit more detail on this. This particular session is really designed to be a quick hitting tip session on how to get started with your research. But the tip I wanted to leave you with here, use your head notes when researching this issue. Maliki is going to be a really important case for you on this issue. It's a Supreme Court case in Florida. It has 27 head notes, 27 issues. A lot of them are constitutional law issues. You're really not going to be worried about the constitutional law issues. You're researching the labor and employment issues. And in particular, it's going to be really issues 20, 21, and 22 that really speak to the issue that you're researching. And I'm going to focus on head note number 22 because this really talks about the standard for negligent hiring in Florida, and it's extremely relevant to what you are researching at this point. The other thing that I think is going to be helpful, this specific issue has been classified to the topic labor and employment, subtopic Roman numeral, 18, rights and liabilities as to third parties, subtopic under that 18B, acts of employee and general negligent hiring, until you get to that last number. If you click that link, it will give you every case in Florida classified to the main topic labor and employment, subtopic negligent hiring in general. You should certainly do that to get an exhaustive list of cases in this state. But what I wanted to focus on right now in 30 seconds is this information right here. Maliki is a highly relevant case in Florida on this issue. This particular issue from Florida, this particular head note in particular, is going to be one that you're going to want to really investigate. I want to get cases that cite to Maliki for this specific point of law, this labor and employment negligent hiring issue. Now, keep in mind, there are 162 cases total that cite to Maliki. 65 of those cases cite to Maliki for that specific point of law. And if you click that link, Westlaw, with one click, is going to give you that list of cases that cited to Maliki for issue number 22. And what you're going to want to do is look at the cases by depth of treatment. Remember, the more green bars, the better. So you want to focus on the 4-bar, and there are none, and 3-bar cases. Don't worry about the 1-bar references. I really, to save yourself some time, focus on the 3-bar cases. There really are only 12 when you do that. And that's going to be a really good, comprehensive way of getting all the relevant cases in Florida on this particular issue. One final tip, or actually 2 final tips. I mentioned folders a little bit earlier. One of the benefits of saving to a folder, I'm going to give you the folder in full view here. Folders serve as a safety net for you. By adding items to folders, Westlaw is going to analyze what you've put in a folder, and this is a little bit hidden, it's going to offer you something called folder analysis. Folder analysis will basically break down each issue from the documents that are in your folder, looking for common patterns, and Westlaw is going to recommend additional documents that you might have missed. All right, so this is a way for you to really make sure that you haven't missed anything. Speaking of missing anything, once you have written your draft, make sure you run your brief or your memo through Quick Check. Quick Check will automatically go through your document, and it will point out weaknesses. It will point out authority you missed. It will even check the quotes you've used for accuracy. You'll see I actually ran a quick check on a brief. Here's some potential weaknesses from the cases and statutes I've cited. I don't want to be citing anything that has a red flag or an orange marker. Here's my quotation analysis feature, checking my quote with the quote on Westlaw and letting me know, highlighting the differences. It'll even let me know if I've made pinpoint citing errors in a quotation. And finally, omitted authority here is basically telling me, hey, I see the argument you made here. This case actually serves your argument better. So make sure you run both your draft and the final version of your trial brief through Quick Check. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, good luck and happy researching.